Hi, I'm Chrys and I am a graduate student at the Simon Fraser University. And in YouTube, I talk about fully funded scholarships in the US and Canada. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about fully funded scholarships in Canada and the US for Masters of Art or Masters of Science and PhD in geography. So if you are interested in human geography, GIS, and these other areas in geographical studies and environment, then this video is for you. If you do know someone who is interested in any one of these fields in geography and interested in applying for scholarships abroad, then please kindly recommend this video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you do enjoy the content of the video. Yeah. Okay, let's come on in. So by way of proceeding, we are going to be I'll be talking majorly about two things in today's episode. First, I'm going to list out the schools that do have this funding that we are going to be discussing today and discuss, the different kinds of funding each of these schools has. And then afterwards, I will talk about how to apply to them. So let's get right to it. So I have 10 schools that I've discovered in Canada and the US that offer fully funded scholarships in geography for their MA or MSc in geography and PhD in geography. So what are these schools? Well, the first on my list is the University of British Columbia. The second on my list is the University of Toronto. The third on my list is the Florida State University. The fourth on my list is the University of Minnesota. The fifth on my list is the University of York. The sixth school on my list is the University of Calgary. The seventh school on my list is the University of Indiana University Bloomington. The eighth university on my list is the McMaster University in Canada. The ninth university is the Brock University in Canada. And then the 10th university is the University of Guelph. All of these schools offer fully funded scholarships in geography, and I chose them because they have both fully funded scholarships for their masters and their PhD, and they do not require you to have IELTS, TOEFL, or GRE. So these are the reasons I chose these schools, and the application is pretty forward. So let's start with the University of British Columbia and see what kind of funding it has. Okay, so they have the Department of Geography in the University of British Columbia has funding for both their MA. So in geography, I realized that there are two different kinds of masters for geography. They have the Masters of Arts and the Masters of Science. So both of these masters have funding in all the schools that I will be discussing today. And in University of British Columbia, they have here that the basic level of funding of a is 26,000 Canadian dollars in income per year to all graduate students. So all graduate students will receive at least minimum in 26,000 in minimum funding. So there are other kinds of scholarship that you can qualify, that you can apply for. If you scroll down, you will see them different. Sandy Lapsky Award in Geography. They have the Larabelle LDC Graduate Scholarships, the Public Scholar Initiative, etc. The one that got my interest is this affiliate scholarship for masters, that you stand to win $16,175 to 16,000 Canadian dollars, and then they also have that same award for PhD, but it is 30,000 maximum, but most are in the range of 16,000. So they have so many awards that you can apply to. Just check it out. Yeah, their deadline they accept admission every year, so their deadline is on the 15th of December for their master's program and the 1st of January for their PhD program. So one thing is, if you're not able to make it for this year's deadline, you can start preparing for next year, right? So anyways, that is that for University of British Columbia, and then we move to the University of Toronto. Their deadline for both their master's and their PhD is January 10th. So you still have time, supposing you have other documents ready. So you still have time, and if you are not ready, you can as well start preparing for next year. What are their different kinds of funding like? Well, for their minimum base funding, this school also gives you, apart from the funding they give to you, they also give you tuition, right? So for their masters and for their MA and MSc for international students, they give you base funding of $20,000 for 1 year. The program is 1 year. And then they pay your tuition fees, which amounts to $31,659 Canadian dollars. So on average, in total, that makes it $51,659 Canadian dollars for a year. Then their PhD for international students is the base funding as well is $20,000, and then the funding is $8,000 per annum. That is actually how much the PhD costs for a year. PhDs are not, they are research degrees, so they are not that expensive. So altogether, you receive $28,969,000 per year, and you will receive this amount of money for 4 good years. Now they have other kinds of funding that you can apply for. This is just the base funding, and since this school is in Ontario, you can as well qualify for if you're applying for the doctoral, for the PhD, you can apply for the Vanier Doctoral Scholarship. If you're a master's student, you can apply for the Ontario Graduate Scholarship. So this funding here is a minimum. There are other kinds of funding that you qualify to apply, and you can indeed apply. Yeah, so that is that for the University of Toronto, and we'll move on to the next school on our list. So the third school on our list is the Florida State University, and they have funding for both their masters and their PhD. If you go to their funding page, you will see that they have $18,000 per year for fall and spring semesters, a 9-hour plus tuition waiver with the possibility of summer teaching for an additional $2,500. This for PhD student is for 4 years. Each year they will give you $18,000, and for their master students, they will give you the same amount for 2 years. Now, unlike Canadian schools, US schools only offer you funding for 2 semesters. Most US schools offer you funding for 2 semesters, right? The fall and the spring. Then during the summer, normally they don't have schools during the summer, so you can work, or you can, apply for summer funding and get it. So yeah, so that is that for this school. That is their funding. They have tuition waivers as well. So this funding covers both tuition waiver and your health insurance and all that. So one thing about this school is that the deadline is January 9th, and you are required to do course evaluation, to do WEST evaluation of your course. WEST, you do your evaluation of your results, and it is course by course evaluation, not the degree or the transcript general degree evaluation, but course by course WEST evaluation. Now for PhDs, they don't require GRE, but for their PhD students, they require PhD, but they can waive your PhD if you have had your master's and you did your undergraduate. On your undergraduate studies, you wrote a thesis. Yes, so these 2 conditions qualifies you for a waiver in graduate record exams if you want to apply to this school. Yeah, so that is that for Florida State University, and we'll move to the next school on our list. So the first school on our list is the University of Minnesota in the US, and their application deadline is December 15th. If you are not able to make it this year, you can as well ready your application to send in next year. Now their funding, although I did not see particular details about this their funding, but they have a guarantee that their MA and PhD programs are both funded. So both domestic and international students are offered a guaranteed funding package contingent on satisfactory progress toward degree. The funding package provides payment of tuition up to 14 credits per semester, partial payment of the health insurance premium, and a stipend. So they also have summer funding. So that is that. You could scroll and read up to see other kinds of stuff that this particular institution offers. Now that is that, and we go to the fifth school on our list, which is the York University graduate program in geography. So their Faculty of Graduate Studies has funding for both their Masters of Science, Masters of Art, and their PhD. Now, what is their funding like? Now, they have York University Fellowship of $16,934, employment, which is $56,306 Canadian dollars, and they also have faculty enhanced funding for international students, which is $4,980. Total package of $78,220,000 for 6 terms. So that is the amount of money that they will be paying you for 6 terms. So that is like 13,000 Canadian dollars per term. This is good funding, but I don't know what the cost of living in the area where the school is located. They also have healthcare coverage of 1,000 Canadian dollars per year, which is good. So that is that for the University of York, and we move on to the next school on our list, University of Calgary. So University of Calgary offers to their Masters of Science and Masters of Arts a whopping sum of 20,000 Canadian dollars for 12-month period for up to 24 months. Typically pay you 40,000 if you are doing a 2 years program. So for their PhD, they are saying that minimum funding for PhD students is 22,000 for domestic students and 24,000 for international PhD students per 12 months for a period of 48 months. So that is 4 years of funding for their PhD and 2 years of funding for their masters. So to apply to this school, although I'm going to still talk about all the things you need to apply, but the deadline for this school is January the 5th of January. So you still have time to start readying your document. And again, this school, before I forget, they strictly require you to secure a supervisor before you apply to graduate school, before you apply to them, before you submit your application. So that is that for this school. And then we'll move on to the 7th school on our list, Indiana University, Bloomington. This school, although I did not see particular figures about their funding, but I do see a promise of full funding to their students. Our MA and MS students are normally funded for 2 years. Our PhD students are normally funded for 4 years if entering with a master's degree, or 5 years if entering with bachelor's degree. Don't forget, this funding is also like the typical American university funding of fall and spring semesters. So summer is not funded because you can work outside of campus or whatever, or you can apply for separate summer funding. So that is that for Indiana University, Bloomington, and we move on to the 8th school on our list, which is the McMaster University. Okay, we are almost done. So the next, McMaster University offers full funding to both their PhD and their master's students, and the minimum base funding is 17,600 Canadian dollars. If you go to their financial support website, they promise that all full-time graduate students admitted to their department, to their School of Earth, Environment and Society without an external funding or scholarships receive basic financial support from the university for 2 years for masters and 4 years for PhD. So that is that. So for this school, you could check other funding details in the school. Now, the next school on our list, the 9th school, is the Brock University. Promises full scholarship for both their master's students and their PhD students. So if you go to their financial website, you will see that for their for 2023-2024 academic year, funding package rate is 16,000 Canadian dollars for international master's students and 24,500 Canadian dollars for PhD, for international PhD students. So that is that for funding in this school. They have other kinds of funding. DGS, Dean of Graduate Studies Excellence Scholarship, which is valued at 35,000 Canadian dollars. They have Horizon Scholarship. They have Brock Indigenous Graduate Award, Professional Program Merit Entrance Award, etc. So if you want to go to this school, do not only consider the basic funding, try to look around to see what funding you qualify for and target this Dean of Graduate Studies Excellence Scholarship. It is something. So that is that for this school, and we move on to the deadline for application is February 15th. Don't forget, February 15th is the deadline to apply to this school, and the deadline for McMaster University to apply to McMaster University is January 15th. So that is that, and we move on to the last school on our list for today. Okay, the last but not the least is the University of Guelph in Canada, and they have good funding. So they are offering 18,000. So for their master student, they are offering 18,500 Canadian dollars for the first 3 semesters, and 12,000 Canadian dollars for their 4th and 5th semesters. And their PhD students receive 20,000 for 4 years, for each of the 4 years of their studies. Now they are saying that most students receive considerably more than the minimum funding, guaranteed funding. During the past 3 years, that they have offered funding of 24,000 Canadian dollars for their PhD students and 36,000 Canadian dollars for their master's students. So this is something worth considering. They also have conditions to maintain this award, and one of them is that you must maintain full-time status and satisfactory academic standing. So, well, that is reasonable. Anyways, let's see what you need to apply to these schools that I have mentioned here, or that I have discussed so far. How to apply to these programs. So first, you must make sure to check the description section below. You will see links to the funding information and the links to apply to these programs. In those links to apply to this program, you will see a direct link to submit your application, and also a link that shows you everything you need to apply to each and every one of the programs. So check the description comment section or description section below, and you will see the links both for the funding information and for the application information. So to apply to these schools, you need to of course the online application form, and then you need a list. You need to list your preferred supervisors. Secondly, you need to have your transcripts. Fourthly, you need to have 3 letters of academic reference, and you need to have your statement of intent and your CV. Let's discuss each and every one of these. Now, I've made a separate videos where I talked about what is required for each and every one of these. For each and every one of these documents, I talked about them. I'm going to leave the link as well in the description section below. Now, each of these schools require you to reach out to a professor first before you apply. So some of them, they just require you to have a professor that you've explained your research, and the professor tells you that they are willing to supervise you. Whereas other schools like the University of Calgary want you to secure a supervisor, like officially secure a supervisor before you apply. Whichever one it is, if you're applying for master's or your PhD in geography, make sure to reach out to each department seeking the advice of a supervisor or potential supervisor who is working in the same area as you. Now you have to have your official transcript. It's not necessarily official transcript, just unofficial transcript is fine. And make sure to have at least 2:1. If you want to, if you want to know, if you don't have 2:1 and you want to see what you can do to better your chances of being admitted, see my video where I talked about how to get scholarship with poor grades or poor CGPA. I will also leave the link in the description section below. Now you also have to provide 3 letters of reference from your academic mentors. I'll also discuss this in my other videos about how to get, what letters of references entail. Then statement of intent. I have made videos as well for this and on how to write award-winning statement of intent, and I did share my own sample of statement of intent. Finally, your CV. CV should be around 1 to 3 pages, and in my next video, just stay tuned. Come on board next week to see the next video on how to write an academic CV for winning scholarship. So I provide in that episode, I will talk about how to write an academic CV. Anyways, that is that for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I do hope you will come back next week. So if you haven't subscribed or liked or shared, come on, what are you waiting for again? Anyways, thank you for tuning in and see you next week. Bye bye.